Welcome back to American Nostalgia Garage. I'm Steve, and here is our beloved 2000 GMC Sierra. That was a lie. Beloved isn't exactly the right word that I would use to describe this Sierra, but it is going to solve a problem for us here on the property. Let me explain. This thing here that's wrapped up like a Hershey Kiss is our 1955 Chevy pickup truck. There's not really a whole lot to show or walk around and show you, except for that it's completely pretty much disassembled. Can't even tell which side's the front, which side's the back. This is where the bed would go. This is where the front end would go. Now, fenders or not, you can probably tell something's missing. Now, that's something that's missing here, we're going to get from that thing right there. Not this human or this dog, but that thing. Now here it is. This is our GM 6-liter LS engine. It's completely topped off because it's in a complete car with all of the accessories we need, power steering, all this emission stuff that we're going to throw directly in the garbage, and also 47 pounds of leaves. But this thing is complete. We got an engine, a harness, a computer. We've got all of our sensors and things like that. And we are going to yoink this thing right out of here and toss it in our 55 Chevy truck. Now, before we turn my backyard into Talladega Super Speedway, I want to get this thing running. And I want to get it to the point where I can putt-putt this thing around here, maybe decide how much traction the rear tires have. Seems like a good idea. Once we've got this thing running and we know it's a good candidate to donate to the cause here, then we can yank it out. So first we're going to get it running, see if we can get it around the backyard here, and then we'll dump it in our truck because we got to get some motor mounts and a transmission mount installed in that thing. Now, the first thing I did is I put our battery here. I put it on bake at 350 for 4 minutes. I flipped it over, another 4 minutes, then raised the temperature to 550. Anyway, this thing was cooked, and I actually threw it in here. We can actually hook it up, and then we could just throw the key in the ignition and see what happens. I have already verified that this engine does turn over with a socket wrench and a 37.5 millimeter socket, so that thing does turn. Noticing right off the bat that it looks like maybe somebody just put this thing in here. I got very limited information when I bought this truck. It was basically sitting there when I was looking at another truck to put on the channel, and I asked how much it was, and then I bought it on the spot. So I don't know much about it because the guys that I got it from, they got this truck as some sort of weird fugazi deal, like I just explained. The fuel lines are hooked up. It looks like the electrical system is pretty hooked up, but what's the worst thing that could happen? Let's turn the key and see what happens. Now, Ryan suggested that we check the oil. I'm not sure what his problem is today, but that's something that normally I wouldn't do. And in fairness, I did actually forget to do it. Thank God I have a bunch of rags up here. When I pulled the stick out right now, which I really shouldn't have to wipe this down because I haven't touched this thing, but when I pulled the stick out, there's nothing on it. There's a little, right on the edge there, a little bit. I guess while we're doing this, because Mr. Goody Two Shoes is here, we'll check.
Yeah, you want to grab some oil and I'll fight with that?
There we go, I got it.
Okay. When in doubt, just shove it.
Just stick with it, you'll be fine.
And you took it out again.
Yeah, well, I wanted to. It's less. It's less than it was a minute ago.
Good.
All right. Got the best thing that we got here, a little Kirkland signature.
Not even a drop.
Perfect. Thread the needle like Peyton Manning. Now, I can't imagine that it's going to need more oil than I have in this container, which was whatever was left. I mean, between the quart or two that was in the engine and the quart or two that was in here, we're probably still 5 quarts low. I'm trying to check it. Oil then. I'm trying to check it. Ironically, it's almost spot on. Just to verify, like I said, we didn't miss any oil at all. I didn't spill anything. Good enough. We did notice, or Ryan just told me that we didn't have any manifold bolts. I did actually notice that before. You know, I look a little bit. Some of the plug wires are off. We're going to put those on. Granted, we have spark plugs on every cylinder, which I don't know that we do. Ryan's in such a hot mess here to try to make sure everything's perfect. Do you want to check the washer fluid before we get started? Or?
Yeah. Actually, you know, well, you go grab the next whatever we need. I'm going to pour some sand right down the valve cover. That'll fix you.
So I don't know if you can see it from this angle, but the manifold there is resting on top of the spark plug, which is why this wire is off. The rest of them are on, but this manifold is not bolted on. So what I think we're going to do is probably take a couple of bolts from the other side, use them on this side just to hold this thing together, and then maybe we will turn it over. All right, we're over by the garage here, and I know exactly where I have some manifold bolts. There they are, right there. Here's 1, 2, and 3. I think that's all I've got. 4. Now at a second glance, these 3 are definitely manifold bolts. This one I'm not sure actually is. It might actually be an original. I don't know why it was still on there. But today, even if it's not a manifold bolt, it is going to identify as one. Now, the first thing I notice is I see a security light blinking. This key fob does work. Or I should say this remote does work. Got juice in here. Nothing when I turn the key. So, I did happen to notice that my shifter doesn't feel like it's connected to anything, which is pretty cool. So that being the case, we might have a neutral safety switch activating and stopping us from starting this thing. Also, Ryan happened to notice that our fuel pump did prime. He was able to hear fuel entering our fuel rails up front. So we're gonna crawl underneath and see if we can figure out what's going on. You know, maybe the transmission's not in park, I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's completely off.
All right, well, I need a tetanus shot and a bath, but I don't know if you guys could hear me underneath the car. The transmission was in reverse, so the neutral safety switch is not going to allow it to crank in that position. So take 2. All right, everybody gets a turn. Now Ryan's going to crawl underneath and see if he can actually see if the neutral safety switch is plugged in. On the second try, it was exactly the same, nothing at all. So may need to start looking at maybe grounds. We're going to check right now to see if the neutral safety switch is plugged in. All right, I'm going to do my best in order to show you what's going on here. Here is our shifter cable. It's disconnected. Here is the actual like shifter lever that's hanging from the transmission. And I don't know if you can see it, but where these wires go to, if you look real close, right here is our neutral safety switch, which goes around our shifter stem that comes out of the transmission. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll do this just to make my point. I can rotate the neutral safety switch all the way around. So this has definitely got to at least be part of our problem, because it's not mounted to the transmission at all. So it doesn't, whether the transmission's in park or neutral or wherever it's at, it's not going to coincide with what the neutral safety switch is reading, because the neutral safety switch itself is turning. So what we're going to do is, I actually have another 4L80 transmission over there by the garage from another car, and what he's going to do is pull that neutral safety switch off. We're going to plug it into these plugs, and then we're going to manipulate it, because the chances are that the bolts are not in there because this neutral safety switch is bad. All right, well, we took ourselves to school. While I do think that we probably have a neutral safety switch issue down below, we went backwards, and we actually took a test light. We went down to the starter solenoid just to make sure that 12 volts was being interrupted, and it is. We do not have 12 volts at the starter, but I also don't have 12 volts on the battery cable down there. So I don't know if the battery cable here is no good. We did happen to check that to this junction, I don't know if you can see with the tag in the way, to this junction we do have 12 volts. Liar, you're a liar. All right, technical difficulties, the test light lost the ground, but point is, we have our power there. It does get transferred over to this cable here, and just for fun, we have it there. Our alternator is actually warm too, so it's being excited, it's on. And I don't mean excited like a Saturday night with your wife. While looking around though, we did happen to notice that when I yanked on this harness here, that I did find a ground just laying down there. And all the grounds on these engines, just in general, grounds are incredibly important. So with one missing, that would have been a huge problem. All right, so here's where we're at. We're taking a step backwards. As I said, we don't have a battery voltage at the starter on the big post, which is weird. So I don't know if we have a bad battery cable or something's disconnected somewhere. Obviously somebody was in here, everywhere. So what we did is we made a super long battery cable. That way I can get a beer from the fridge and run a battery from there all the way to the truck. So basically we are going to rig this top post battery to a side post battery, run this down to the starter so it has 2 starter cables, and hopefully one of them will provide some sort of voltage. All right, we have our really long battery cable run all the way over the engine, which is the safest place to put it for obvious reasons. We are going to make sure that it gets caught in this belt as much as possible. Ideally, this alternator is actually on fire now because apparently the key has been in the on position this entire time. Also, that's weird because the battery is not attached. Maybe it's just warm from when it was on. I don't know what's going on. It's starting to get dark out. We are losing sunlight, and by that I mean the sun is gone. So we don't have that much time left. Let's. I just want to see if we can get this thing to turn over at the very least before we pack it up for tonight. All right, what you're witnessing is not a snuff film. Well, I guess it is. I'm trying to kill that starter. So we now have our 12 volts on our big lug on the starter, and we do have the signal at the starter. Now, the starter just doesn't want to start. So, we have a bad starter. We have to figure out either a way to bash it with a hammer pretty good, or we are going to have to pull it out and replace it. That is obviously not happening tonight though. Alright, I don't even know if you can see me. Does this help? Yep. Okay, good. Maybe that's good. Yeah, we'll do this like Are You Afraid of the Dark style. Well, now that I can't see you, we're calling it for the night. It's too dark. We're condemning the starter at this point. It's getting its S-terminal signal. There's power at the large terminal. It doesn't want to do anything. It's not clicking, it's not nothing. So tomorrow I'm going to pick up a starter and we'll pick up from there. All right, new day. I did actually do some stuff before updating you today. I stopped at the parts store. I got us a new starter. Starter has been installed on this thing. My son's riding his quad around like a lunatic, so you probably can't hear me. Anyway, the starter is already installed. You guys don't need to see us throw a starter in this thing. But we're gonna give this thing a crank and see if we can get it to spin over. We turned the key about 175 times, so the fuel pump should be primed, so it might actually start. The fuel pump should be primed, so it should just start.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, can't start without a negative battery terminal. Clear prop. Okay. me to do it one more time.
I wouldn't do that.
What's happened?
You have a pretty significant leak.
Oil? Where's that coming from? All right, well, it did start, but not without a hitch. The transmission line, which is tangled up in the rest of the stuff down here, is not plugged into the radiator. And those have those like funny like C-clips. So if that's missing, that's not going to hold itself in there.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is too. It's missing that retainer clip.
Yeah, so what we'll probably have to do is, I would say, we'll take them both out and just run a piece of hose to skip the cooler.
Just loop it. Yep.
All right, couple errors here that I made and Ryan signed his name to. So that's good, we're both wrong. This is the oil cooler, which we did initially say to each other, I swear. And then we both kind of agreed that it was a transmission cooler, but it is the oil cooler in fact. So we were right the first time, trust yourself. Also, the clip actually was down in that fitting. So we did bend the line back to get all the angle right and just shoved it back in there. So hopefully now it doesn't get caught into the crank pulley or the fan. And we're gonna throw this thing on so we can get the MAF to get a reading, and then we should be good. All right, another discovery. The actual transmission lines, which are on this side, that lower one down here, I don't know if you can see it, is kinked in 75 different spots. So what we're going to do is actually pull that one out of the trans. No, you can't see with the flashlight. Down here, unkink it and then shove it back in, hope it doesn't leak. Because if we don't have fluid flowing through the cooler, that means it's going to starve the transmission on the other side. I believe. I'm not a transmission expert, but we need a transmission to fluid to flow. So, yep, that's a garbage can, the biggest funnel we have, and a very smart person. All right, we did find that there's more cool stuff. I had to end up, me and Ryan picked up this piece of garbage out of my garage, and we looped our coolant hoses for our heater core. So that's good. I'm just noticing this clamp is still not on there. For whatever reason, this person took off every single clamp and just like backed it off like 2 inches so that it would leak, but you wouldn't know that it was missing because they left the hose on there. Very weird. But I think we're almost ready to start it. We're gonna try putting water in it once more, and then you know, maybe we can move this thing around on its own power. What are you doing to me?
Is that good? Yep.
Starts good.
Yeah.
All right, so what we have right now is it doesn't want to idle at all. If I rev it up, it'll stay running, and actually runs really clean, like above 2,000 RPM. But it just like hunts and then just like dies out, dies right off. Did happen to notice in the instrument cluster that the battery voltage was telling us it was like 19 volts. And I don't know if you guys remember, I did say yesterday, maybe maybe I said it on film, maybe I didn't, that the alternator was hot. So anyway, just to see if we could get it to stop, or if maybe it was having an over voltage problem, you know, where it was spiking voltage and then the engine computer was getting confused. So we pulled the excite wire on the back. That didn't do anything. So we pulled the main charge cable on the stud on the back of the alternator, and that didn't make a change. And Ryan happened to have a bright idea and was like, give me a second. He unplugged the MAF sensor, and we're going to start it now, and we should get this thing to stay running. Ready?
Yeah.
Side note, I don't know if you can hear me, I can feel this thing vibrating, and so that bearing is definitely bad. We're going to have to replace that, but for now, the truck is running great. All right, well, we have several neutrals. Or at least right now we do. Apparently there's absolutely no transmission fluid in it. All right, here's some of the, I can't say carnage, but one of our drive shaft bearing caps became a piece of confetti in my backyard here because I tried to do a burnout in four-wheel drive. Go ahead. I mean, think what you want to think. Ryan's laughing. This is great. I don't really care about any of that stuff as long as the block is okay, because that we need. But I do think that we're done driving it now. We did want to drive it, but I don't think that that's going to happen. So what we're going to do is we are going to bring it over to the garage where we can, I'll call it easily, take the engine out, and then we'll start getting ready to start mocking it up in our 55 truck. All right, it is day 3. And yeah, I realize how unimpressive that is if you're watching this and saying, oh, let's see how fast we can do an engine swap. That's not this channel. We're not very good at anything. All joking aside, we're doing the best we can here. We're doing this like after work most days for a couple hours before we lose the sun. Anyway, here's what we're at today. Ryan's gonna get this thing swapped out. We'll probably, I guess we're not gonna need it, but maybe we'll throw a charge on the battery. We're gonna start pulling all this stuff apart, probably get the rad support out. But before we start, I have my Leapfrog computer in there, and what we got to do is I want to turn the VATS system off, which is basically the vehicle anti-theft system, the system that will stop it from running in our engine swap truck. We're using HB tuners, which is I have like the prehistoric version of HB tuners, like from like 500 years ago. The ancient Egyptians were apparently tuning LS engines back then. So I have to use my laptop from like 20 years ago. I mean, literally 20 years ago. And because it's the only thing that has the hardware and the firmware to use my plug, which I just remembered I gotta go get, and my old HP tuners. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna log into the computer, and I'm gonna do some top secret tuning. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Get out of here, this is top secret, I'm tuning. All right, I'm about to give away a magician's secrets here. So it took about 5 minutes to, you know, read the computer and get, you know, the base tune saved. So I saved it as our 55 Chevy Sierra engine swap 6.0 base tune, and I tagged it VATS deleted, the vehicle anti-theft system. I'm just going to show you how simple and easy this is when these guys do this and charge you a bunch of money. They'll probably be mad at me for it. I'm going to hit the system tab. I'm going to security right here. It says VATS control. Under there it says serial. There's a drop down menu. I'm going to hit none. And I'm going to X this box out. And then I'm just going to basically send the new tune to the computer, which is right here, right vehicle. I don't have credits, so I got to buy some credit. But what I'll do is I'll buy the credits for this, and then I will write the tune to the car. All right, you're staring at me, so you're really only seeing one of the defeated individuals that are on the property. Another one standing over there, cuddling my dog, trying to nurse himself back to sanity. But I don't know, it wasn't that hard. We did have a couple of those like stud bolts with the nut that hold like a dipstick thing on the back of the transmission. Those pain in the butt things that the OEMs do. But we got them off. This thing is about ready to be plucked out. I'm sure there's 15 things we're forgetting, and when we start yanking on it, it'll let us know. And we got to go stop. We got to have some chicken cutlet sandwiches, and we need to get a lift cylinder for my engine hoist, because That thing's lifted many, many engines in its life, and it's given up. All right, just like that, another day down. The engine is plucked, but not without a fight. It was like a suicide mission. I don't want to throw stones at the person who was working on this last, but I have no idea what they were trying to do. It was a mess. It was very hard to get this engine out, believe it or not, and I've done this a couple of times. Nonetheless, our engine is out. It's ready to go in the truck, but the truck is not ready to take the engine yet. I forgot that I left that in when I was working on this truck last, when I did all the frame modifications. We did a heights front end on this. If you didn't see that video, go back and watch it. That cross member's got to go. We do have a transmission here. It is an empty case. No, I'm not a world strongman, but that's an empty case that we're going to use, a Turbo 400 that we're going to use for mock-up. So when we get back on this thing in a couple days, after we get some parts together, we are going to throw the Turbo 400 case on there, stab it in, and then hopefully get some engine mounts made. Because that's the whole point of this right now. All right, clearly it's dark out. We wasted an entire day trying to rig the engine into the spot that we needed to go. We have it equidistant. Word of the day, equidistant. The crank bolt is equidistant in between the frame rails. So we have a 17-inch mark. Basically, it's 17 inches where the crank bolt needs to be in order to be centered between the frame rails. We did have to mess with the back of the engine, because the back of the engine kind of wanted to do this. So even if we had the front where it was supposed to be, it kind of was doing this. We have that figured out, mostly. We have a jack underneath the transmission. The transmission actually has to come down a little bit. The truck itself is at I believe it was like a 3-degree angle downwards. So in order for us to get the engine at an additional 3 degrees downwards, we need 6 degrees there. We have to actually mess with that tomorrow in the daylight. But yeah, we did some stuff. We did get some motor mounts kind of like mocked into place. This is the way they're going to go. We have room for the steering shaft to go underneath. We're going to gusset this. We do have some trimming and obviously welding to do, but that's going to work there. Pretty much ends up being the same thing on this side. We're going to have to clearance the mount itself a little bit, and then we'll just weld it up into our boxing plate that we did on the Heights front end kit. Yeah, so today was one of those days where we did a lot, but there wasn't really a lot to show you guys. So yeah, I got my one glove on, like Michael Jackson. But there wasn't a lot to show you guys today. This was like a lot of work, just going back and forth and getting it right, and the angles and the twisting and whatever. But we are now pretty much set up to trim our motor mounts, make them fit, and weld them tomorrow. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, welcome back. It's another day. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get straight to it, right? We're going to get straight to rigging up the engine, just in case you didn't see. I'm not talking to myself. There's a chicken here. We're going to get straight to locating the engine where it needs to be, and then we're going to mock our mounts in and get to welding. All right, we got it real close, 21 degrees. So I'm just going to match that on this side now. All right, welcome back. It's another day. I'm wearing the truck as a hat. We got it up on the 4-post. We are going to do the transmission mount. Hopefully today is the last day of this engine swap. Or I should say just, you know, building engine mounts and stuff. Got to do transmission mount so that we can actually have this thing sitting there without wood blocks and a ratchet strap and whatnot. So let's do it. All right, so what we have is a 4-inch drop universal mount. And then we used an angle finder up against the tail shaft of the transmission to try to get our pinion angle and our motor, you know, downward angle correct. And we did. So we're in the ballpark. We basically used a screw jack just to get it perfect. We made sure to measure from the bolts to the frame just to make sure that the transmission's tail is actually facing the right direction and not too far over one side. And at this point, we are going to grab our mount, bolt it to the mount itself here, and then we're going to take our little flanges, we're going to weld them to the end of our piece of tube, and then we're going to put them up there, drill our holes, and we'll be done with that. Did you guys get all that? All right, our inside to inside measurement on our frame rails is 33 7/8, 33 3/4. We're going to sneak up on it and start with 33 7/8, and if we need to knock it down a little bit more, we will. I want to be able to get it out if we need to, which is, we can't just pull straight down because it'll get caught on the inside of the frame rail. So we need enough room to be able to turn it out and then pull it down. When you measure your cross member, remember that this mount needs to end up where the transmission is. So this, we measured it as 37 7/8. We have to shorten it down to 33 7/8. That's 4 inches. But don't just go lopping 4 inches off of it, because if you do that, this is where it's going to end up. If you need to take 4 inches, like we are going to, we're going to take 2 inches off this side, 2 inches on this side, just to make sure that this part, where it's going to mount to the transmission, goes in the same spot. All right, well, I'm joined by some of my best friends here, and it's becoming like a tradition that we have chickens on the channel. So there's Juno, she's always with us here. That's Honey, and then over there is Bunny. Yes, Honey Bunny. Anyway, here's what we got. We have our transmission cross member at the length we need. We have the flanges slid on there. We knocked back the mill scale on the ends and on the flanges. We bolted it up to our transmission, so it's actually in place. The last thing I'm going to do before I actually put a tack on these flanges is I am going to make sure that the transmission cross member itself is at the right height, or an equal height on both sides, so it's equal. And then I'm going to tack our flanges directly to the tube so we can keep the position. We'll mark our holes and drill, and while Ryan is probably doing the drilling, I will take this cross member out and finish weld the flanges. All right, something I didn't explain just a minute ago, but just wanted to let you guys know that I'm doing it, is I'm actually going to take a piece of cardboard. Yes, this is some wet, cardboard backing from a Harbor Freight ratchet strap. I'm going to take this and I'm going to shove it between the frame rails and the flange. That way there is just the slightest air gap in between the flange and the frame rail permanently. That way, when I go to take the cross member out, I'm not fighting it with it, because if I just take that flange and slide it out to the frame rail and then weld it right there, it's going to be exactly fit to the frame rail. We need a little bit of air gap, that way we can get the thing out. All right, now that the flanges are where they need to be, they're not final welded, but I'm going to take it out and weld it in a minute. I am going to make sure that the height of each side is verified again, and then I'm going to mark our holes with a Sharpie. All right, well, transmission is suspended by its cross member, so that's huge. Also gives us enough kind of room to get under here with exhaust if we happen to do so. I don't know if I've mentioned it already when I was talking about this truck in another video or anything, but we have plans for this thing, and the exhaust might be going right out the front, if you catch my drift. So I am going to finish weld the underneath of the motor mounts, which we didn't get to do before, and then we're going to pull that wood block out. We should be about ready to go. We also want to add gussets to our motor mount, so We still have a little bit of work to do, but we're almost done. Now I get to do just a bit of everybody's favorite, which is overhead welding. All right, we're all welded up. We are going to add gussets later on, but for now we are going to pull our motor mount bolts out, jack the engine up, get our temporary wood blocks that we used for setting the engine in position, out of here, and then we're going to put our bolts back in and see if our mounts will actually hold it. Final test. All right. It gets through with a C. Minus. But it's in there. Our bolts slid right in once we had them lined up, you know, and motor was where it was supposed to be. The bolts slid right in, and when Ryan let the weight out, they did exactly what they're supposed to do, and the engine is where it's supposed to be. Very happy with that. Here's what we have from the front. Here's what we have from the back. Here's our transmission cross member. We are going to swap the Allen head bolts out for regular bolts at some point. But here's what we got. Very happy with that. We are going to swap out this case, this Turbo 400 case, for a Turbo 400 reverse manual valve body that came out of the race car, Hitman. We're just going to use it just to get it as a yard driver for now. We're going to swap out this truck pan for an F-body pan that Ryan has. He's donating to the cause here, so we don't yank this thing off when we hit a speed bump or a curb. And there it is, in all its glory. And not too shabby for a couple of days work between two idiots. This thing was running and driving in another truck just a few days ago, and here it is on our 55 Chevy truck, exactly where it should be. Huge thanks to this guy. Please subscribe to his channel, Automotive Chaos. All right, I changed my mind. Don't subscribe to his channel. But that's a huge step forward. Ryan was a huge help. Wouldn't have been able to do it without him. I'm very happy with where this truck is. Please consider subscribing to the channel. You guys can follow along on this build and many others. And as always, thank you guys for watching. American Nostalgia Garage, out.